إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We are doing the different ways Quraysh were opposing the message, the new message, the Islam, and they were using different tactics. How they were, and anybody remember what did we discuss while we are waiting to load? So the first one was they went to Abu Talib and asked him if he can stop Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because he's the chieftain and he's also the uncle. And then anything else?
They tried to stop recitation of the
Yeah,
Quran.
they tried to stop the recitation of the Quran. It worked, sometimes it actually backfired, and then we discussed about a couple of times when these chieftains and the noblemen of the Quraysh, they were listening to the Quran secretly, and they were getting affected. They were also, anything else?
Wasn't it when in the Hajj season the people would stand outside of the Makkah and tell them to stay away from Prophet Muhammad? Yeah, and that's mostly it was Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, and they all started just lying about Prophet Sallallahu, that he's Majnoon, he's Sahir, so you should not listen, and that sometimes worked. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it's actually backfired because there were people who, just because they were stopping them to come, not to listen, they came and they got curious and they came and they started listening to what Prophet ﷺ said, and they got affected and they actually accepted Islam, and we discussed a couple of stories about those. Anything else?
The miracle, asking for
asking for different miracles. Yeah, and Allah gave Prophet ﷺ lots of miracles, but then he sometimes Allah said no, there is no need for miracles because because Allah knew that they are not going to accept Islam, and then we discussed what are the other reasons why there were no miracles given in that sense. Why? Okay, at last. And then they tried to ridicule Prophet ﷺ as well. The next tactics which they used was they went to, because you have to remember that prophethood was not a phenomenon which Arabs were familiar with. So it's a Jewish and the Christian phenomenon. So the Quraysh and the people of the Makkah, they were not really familiar with prophethood and the prophets coming, because they didn't see any prophet for centuries. There was no prophet in Makkah, and the last prophet was, you have to remember, Ibrahim and Ismail, and then there's like lots and lots of years have gone past, and there's no prophet. But on the other side, the Jews, they have lots and lots of prophets coming. One prophet after another prophet, like in every generation there is a prophet coming. But on Ismail's side there is no prophet coming. So after Ismail, Prophet ﷺ is the first prophet. So there is no prophets in between. So they are not really aware of this prophethood, the phenomena of the prophethood. So they went, but they knew that Jews, they know about the prophets, and this is their phenomenon, so that this is their thing. In their culture, they talk about the prophets. So they went to Jews and they said, well, give us some questions so that we should ask Prophet ﷺ to actually test him, to quiz him if he's a right prophet or not. And the delegation went to Jews, and the Jews said, okay, go and ask him about Jacob and Yaqub. And we discussed that previously, that Yaqub is, what's the name of Yaqub? What's the title of the Yaqub? Israel. So Israel is Yaqub. So that's where the Bani Israel has come from. Yaqub, to tell us about Yaqub and Jacob, and they Allah gave the stories of those prophets, revealed the stories of those prophets in the Quran, and Prophet ﷺ told us. Then they went and they said, tell us about Yusuf, because Yusuf alayhi salam, Makkah people, they didn't know anything about Yusuf. So that's the stories they in Torah, so they knew about, the Jews knew about him. So there's a whole surah revealed in the Quran, Surah Yusuf, and so Allah gave us a lot of details about Yusuf alayhi salam and the whole his whole life. So Prophet ﷺ told about them. Then again, there is another story where they went to Jews and they asked us. They said, "Okay, go and ask these 3 questions." So they gave these 3 questions. They said, "Ask about the young man who entered the cave and slept for a long time." And then there's another question they asked them, a man who traveled the world from east to west. And the third one, they asked him about the ruh, the spirit, and what it is made of. Prophet ﷺ confidently said, "Okay, come tomorrow and I will tell you." But he was overconfident. It means it wasn't that he was... he said that I knew everything, but it's just that he knew that Allah will reveal the answers to me and I will tell them. But he didn't say inshallah. And the way he didn't come. So one day became 2 weeks, and the way he didn't come for 2 weeks. And Prophet ﷺ actually was mocked by the Quraysh a lot at that time, because he couldn't answer them, because he was still waiting for the wahi to come. And because he didn't say inshallah, Allah, probably it's a harsh way to say punish him, but it reminded him about who's the creator and who's the creation. So it was like a reminder for Prophet ﷺ. And Prophet and the Quraysh started saying, "Oh, has your evil spirit abandoned you?" Sorry.
Just adding to what you said, because people had to really accept that nothing will happen unless Allah agrees. So that's a main aqidah principle. So that was a lesson which we all learned. We all say inshallah.
So that's the lesson. Means Allah taught all the Muslims and the generations to come through Prophet ﷺ that, well, this is our aqidah, that nothing happens unless Allah wants it. So that's what inshallah means, if Allah wants. So after 2 weeks, Surah Kahf was revealed, and in the Surah Kahf, the whole story is about the young men who traveled, and Allah caused them to sleep, and their donkey was completely decomposed. They slept for 200 years or 300 years.
They had a dog. 309 years. The donkey with the Uzair.
So the dog got completely decomposed and the bones were left, and the food they had was completely fresh when they woke up. Was it 200 years? Or
the food and the donkey with the Uzair, who died for 100 years.
Oh yeah. For them, the dog was, it was only dog.
300, they were a dog,
300.
And the dog was alive.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was sleeping, yes, that's right.
All of them were asleep.
Sleep. Yeah, that's true. I was mixing up the 2 stories. Yeah, so their dog and they themselves, they slept for hundreds of years, and they woke up and they were fine. And then they went out and they did something. They told the people about what happened, and then they died soon after that. But they slept for like hundreds of years, 300 years.
309 years.
Wait, did they think it was like the next day or something?
When they woke up, yes, they thought that they just slept for a night. But then when they went out, they found out that they were sleeping for 300 years.
Yeah, they didn't they give the money to somebody and they said, this is 309 years old, and they said you don't need to fear. There's a new and kind king.
Yes, that's true, and that's in the story. Yeah, in the more detailed story. Where did you learn? In Sunday school?
Yeah.
Well done. So, so they slept. So Prophet ﷺ told them the whole detail of that story. And the second thing was that they asked about the man who traveled from the east to west, and that's Zulkarnain. And there's a difference of opinion between the scholars. Was he a prophet or just a righteous king? But he's the man who traveled throughout the world from east to west. And there is a misconception. Some people says that this Alexander the Great is the Zulkarnain, but that's not the case, because we know that Alexander was a pagan. It's fully documented in the history, so he can't be the Zulkarnain.
He travelled eastwards anyway, didn't he?
No, it's not necessarily that he traveled from east to west. But it's like he covered the whole earth.
Okay, fine.
So it's basically that he covered from one end to the other end.
We had a video, unfortunately in Arabic, but we had this Ramadan. A Syrian Imam in north of Sweden, he went and took a picture. The sun doesn't sit at all. It moves around in a circle. There's no sunset at all.
Yeah.
And he said probably this is what Allah mentioned in the Quran, that he came to a people where Allah didn't make any barrier between them and the sun. The sun was always there.
Yeah.
So this is that they say probably is there.
Yeah, it's probably in the Norway.
If you did live like that, how would you know what time it was to read namaz or what time it was to break the fast?
They gave them the fatwa to follow Makkah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they do the same for the
fasting
as well. But then there are people who actually fast for 22 hours, and they allow
sunset for 2 hours.
Yeah,
No, you just wouldn't eat.
And that's that's the argument. It's an unnecessary hardship, especially when you have a fatwa which says.
Yeah, that fatwa taken also. The Prophet ﷺ said, Dajjal will come, will stay with you 1 day equal to a year.
Yeah.
1 day equal to a month, 1 day equal to a week, and the rest is equal to all this. The Sahaba asked, when it's a day equal to the whole year, how we are going to pray 5 times a day? He said, estimate.
Yeah.
So they took the fatwa from the estimation. So they estimate, Dhuhr now and Asr now.
Yeah. But I mean, subhanAllah, there are people who actually just carry on for fasting for 22 hours. So Allah will reward them, inshallah. But I mean, there are fatwas available to make it easier for them.
The fatwa is difficult to say, estimate when there is sunset.
Yeah.
And the scholars say,
so if there is
sunset, then
if there is a sunset, then you just have to follow the sunset and sunrise.
yeah, they told us they go and have breakfast, and then they pray Asha, and pray Taraweeh,
and then they
have Suhoor, and pray Fajr, and go home.
Oh, yeah.
In one go.
Yeah, so because it's only 2 hours. So the next thing they asked about the ruh, and it was like a trick question, because if Prophet ﷺ would have come back with the detailed answer of what the ruh is, then they would know that he's not a prophet, because the answer is that there is no knowledge. In the Quran, Allah says that we haven't given you a lot of knowledge except a little bit. So ruh, nobody knows, and we still don't know what ruh is. I mean, people have tried to find and say what the ruh is, but nobody really knows. In fact, science doesn't really believe in ruh. So, and then there's a lot of things. I was reading a paper which I think it was done in Scandinavia. There was a study done. You must have heard about 18 grams. 18 gram?
Yes.
18 gram.
In America, the Christian, they try to say it weighs.
It weighs 18 gram, and where they took it, actually, they did a scientific research, and they, I think it was in the Scandinavian countries, they in lots of ITUs, they put the scaled beds, and they measured people before they flatlined and just after that. And there was, Allahu Alam, there was 18-gram difference.
They stuck with the consciousness.
Yeah.
Where the consciousness is and how do you develop it and why we have the insight and things like this.
They took people when they were about to die and then they put them on the bed.
No, the bed was scaled bed. So there was scales built in the bed.
Who were about to die and put them on the bed.
No, they were already on the bed.
Oh.
So because they are patients, they are already on the bed, and the scales were built in.
Is that allowed?
They decided.
Why would
Is that not just like using people for an experiment?
No, but people would be on the bed, isn't it?
It was.
And the patients.
Yeah, Suleiman, there's people we say, the doctor said DNR, do not resuscitate.
Yeah.
So they don't do anything, they just leave them and then they
But in response to your question, they probably agreed to the principle as
What's
patients.
that?
Yeah.
What principle?
He was saying, but have the patients agreed to it?
No, it's not a patient agreed or not. When you come to hospital, you automatically agreed for being weighed
And
Yeah.
diagnostic.
So they were not doing anything. They were just weighing them.
Okay.
Obviously, because they have got tubes and everything in, so they won't put them on the scale. So their beds actually have the built-in scales in them. So that's all. So nothing new. So the scales are built in on the bed, but they can't really take them.
Yeah, nothing intrusive.
Yeah. So they can't really take them out and weigh them on the weighing machine. So that's why the weight machine is built in the beds.
The soul is weighed 18 grams.
That's according to them. According to them, there's nothing Islamic about it. So I'm just giving you what I've studied.
I heard that the American evangelical Christian did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean that's that's where they take it from.
Scandinavian, no, so
No, that's where they take it. That's where they took it.
the evangelical took it from.
Yeah,
Scandinavia.
from this research.
All right. I had a patient who the staff were giving her 2 liters of water, and we want to monitor how much she takes and measure the output. And the output was 5 liters. And that went for 5 days. I said, look, it doesn't happen. You can't take 2 liters and pass out 5 liters. And they kept swearing, and then we went brought the patient. And the patient thought, she said, yes, she goes and drink from the tap as well. So they were measuring, but she wasn't telling them that.
Yeah. So the next tactics they used was outright torture, and that's what our main topic for today. So the people who had the tribal bonds, the noblemen, they were somewhat protected, like Prophet ﷺ himself and Abu Bakr and Umar. Well, Umar didn't get accepted Islam till late, but all these noblemen, Osman and all of these people, they were a bit protected because they had tribal bonds, so nobody would be able to go and harm them because the tribe would avenge them, so tribe will protect them. But as I said, the initial people, so some of them were actually the noblemen, but the majority of them were the lower class, so slaves and the mullahs. And we said the mullah was the term they used for people who were slaves, but they've been freed slaves. So Sa'd ibn Jubair asked Ibn Abbas, who was his teacher, that how did the pagans tortured the Muslims? Was it really bad? And then this is a hadith. So he said, Ibn Abbas said, the believers were tortured so severely that they were starved, deprived, until they could not even sit upright out of the pain, and until one of them would be told, is Lat your God? And they would say yes. And so much so, if an insect passed by, they were asked, is this insect your God? They would say yes, just to get rid of the torture. So there was, he used the words, as for the Abu Bakr, and there's another hadith, in the main culprit in all of this, behind all of this torture was none other than Abu Jahl. And that shows, that means how crude and how rude and how cruel this man was. And that's the reason why when Prophet ﷺ actually made the dua for that Allah gave me one of the two Umars, he was not the one who got accepted because of what he was doing and what his heart was like. And Umar bin Khattab, the second Khalifa, he was the one who got accepted because Allah accepted him over him. And we will see that Umar, although he was again very harsh man and very strict man, and he was quite short-tempered as well at times, but he had a soft heart as well. He was a soft inner core, and that we see throughout the Seerah a lot. And that's the reason why Allah chose him. So Abu Jahl, what he would do, because if there's someone from the noble class, which he can't touch, they will just do the verbal abuse. So they will go and they will scold them and say things just verbally because they can't touch them because of the tribal bonds. If it was a businessman, they will go and cause the boycott for that businessman, that nobody should sell and buy things from him. If it is a lower class, a slave, he would go and ask the masters to punish them and torture them, and sometimes they even kill them as well. And he will himself take part in that. Ibn Masud Razillahu Ta'ala anhu, the famous Ibn Masud, remember who was Ibn Masud? Abdullah ibn Masud. He was a freed slave, Mola, who was a shepherd, yes, who was a shepherd, and Prophet Sallallahu Abu Bakr was passing by and they asked him if you can have milk, and then and then he accepted Islam straight away. So he's one of the earliest of the converts. His hadith is, in hadith it says, Abu Bakr, Amr ibn Yasir, and Sumayya. As for Abu Bakr, as for Prophet ﷺ, Allah protected him through Abu Talib. Again, I mean the beauty of how he says it. Allah protected him through Abu Talib, and that's what our iman is. Everything goes back to Allah. So yes, Abu Talib protected him. He was the case, but it wasn't Abu Talib. It was Allah's protection through Abu Talib, and that's what our iman is. Everything we ascribe back to Allah. So if somebody gets, so if you take amoxicillin and you get better, so you say Allah cured me through amoxicillin, through this medicine. So we put everything back to Allah. So that's the tawakkul. Tawakkul is not that you don't take anything and say Allah will cure me. So you take whatever you need to take, you need to do, and then tawakkul on Allah, because you don't think that this medicine will cure me, or this money will make me better, or this money will do this job for me. You ascribe it back to Allah, but then you use the means which you should be using. So as for Prophet ﷺ, Abu Talib, Allah protected him through Abu Talib. As for
that's a very nice way you put it, because when Abu Talib died, Abu Lahab became the head of the family, and he refused to protect the Prophet.
Yeah.
And Allah didn't want Abu Talib, Abu Lahab, to have any input to the message.
Didn't he try to protect him for a week?
For a little bit, yeah, for an initial bit.
And then there were discussion between him and
Abu Jahl,
and he withdrew his protection.
And then as for Abu Bakr, Allah protected him through his own tribe, Banu Kahafa, or Banu Tamim, the both names come. And for the rest of them, the Quraysh gathered them all together and tortured them. And who are the rest of them? Yasir, his wife Sumayya, Bilal, Khabbab ibn al-Arat, and Abdullah ibn Masud. So they were all from the lower class people, and they were all punished really bad. So Abdullah ibn Masud said that the Quraysh gathered them all together, and they would sometimes put hot iron on their bodies and take them out on the sand and would leave them there. and one of them eventually would give up and say whatever the Quraysh wanted to say. But except for Bilal ibn Rabaha. It's such a beautiful story, and I mean we all heard it, but it's every time you read it or hear it, it just gets your iman a bit of a boost. So imagine Bilal is the slave of Umayyah bin Khalaf, and he is one of the meanest of the Quraysh, and they would take Bilal out and put it on the sand in the hot weather of Mecca, like when the sun is really on your head, and they will put him on the sand and put a heavy stone on his sand and leave him there, and they will keep on asking him, say that Lat is your God, and he would not say a single word to please them. He will just keep on saying Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad, Allah is one, Allah is one. So, and means people could hear throughout the Mecca what he is saying, Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad. And I mean, so there's a saying that Kamatu Dinu Dodan, how whatever you do, you will get the same in return. Or there's another saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, Al Jazao bil Jinsil Amal. Al Jazao bil Jinsil Amal. Min Jinsil Amal. So that the jaza will be as what you do. So see what he was saying when he was persecuted, that he's saying Ahadun Ahad when people are trying to say him now, and then he's the one who's actually saying Adhan. So he's saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So he's the muezzin of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So what an honor he get, and Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would always keep Bilal with him, just because whenever there's a time of Adhan, he would be the one who would be giving Adhan.
He said he wouldn't say that he thinks that he's God. But I heard somewhere that you can say it, but in your head you can actually know that you're doing it, and you know that it's wrong. So Allah won't punish you because you know it's wrong, but you're only doing it to save yourself.
Yeah, you're right, and you can say it. So in Islam, you are allowed to do that. If you are afraid of your life, you can say kalmatul kufr. So you can say something of which is not right, but in your heart you are okay. And we will come to that in a minute. But then that's allowed. But he would just not do it because he didn't think that his life is worth anything when it comes to Islam. So if he dies, then it doesn't bother him at all.
So be it.
So be it. So he didn't want to give them anything. He didn't want to give any pleasure to them by saying anything of kufr. And there's a lot of stories. Umayyah, said that's his masters. He would ask the gangs of the Mecca and they will put a rope in his neck, and they will drag him in the streets of Mecca. And there's an Ansari, Hassan ibn Thabit. He said that once I went to Mecca to do Hajj, and I saw how much he was punished, that I was astonished that how he's still alive. How didn't he get? He's not dead yet. So he was punished so much. And there is another hadith, Amr ibn al-Asad. He said, once I was coming back from the Hajj. He was he wasn't a Quraysh. So going back, he saw Bilal being lie down in the sand with a rock being put on his chest so that he can't move. And the sun was so hot and the rock was so hot that he said that I was sure that if I put my meat on that rock, it will cook the meat and I will be able to eat it. So it was so hot, the rock. But he was there and he kept on saying Ahadun Ahad. Most
You said so he didn't mind that he was having the rock on him, didn't it still hurt?
It did hurt. Yeah, it did hurt to him, but he took up all the punishment, all the hardship, but for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Islam.
Okay.
And that's why it's so iman boosting this story every time because look at him, he was being punished so much, and we are living the life of luxury, so that we have got no excuse. Literally, we have got no excuse not to be good Muslims. So the next one we talk about the story of Ammar and his family. So Yasir and his wife Sumayya, they were both slaves, and they had two sons, Ammar and Muhammad. And once Abu Jahl came and he started asking them about the Islam, they have accepted Islam or not, and he kept on asking, and in the end they said yes, they kind of accepted that, yes, we have accepted Islam. And they started beating him, and there's one narration says that they took Yasir, tied him between the horses and kind of torn him apart. He was tortured really badly. And then the Sumayya, his wife, she rebuked them, and they said, why are you doing this? And Abu Jahl came and he took a spear and thrust it into her pelvis and killed her. So really cruelly. And then they turned around and killed the son Muhammad. And Ammar, who was only 15 years old, and he was there, he saw his father, mother and brother being killed in front of his eyes. And they asked him, and he said, no, I'm not a Muslim, and he kind of he gave up. So they left him, and who can blame Ammar? I mean, he's a 15-year-old kid who has just seen such a brutal thing in front of his eyes. The whole family is being massacred. So put ourselves in his shoe, and we would do much more than what he did. And then as soon as they left, he felt like, oh, what did I do? I said Kalma al-Kufr. He got worried about himself, that how would I be forgiven? So he went to Prophet ﷺ and told him the whole story. And Prophet ﷺ said, how do you find your iman in your heart? And he said, I'm still my heart is fully on iman. And he said, that's fine. If they come back, if they return, then you return. So if they come back to torture you, you say Kalmat al-Kufr again. So that's why it says it's allowed to do that. So if it is to save your life, then you are allowed to say something which is you don't want to. And Ammar ibn Yasir, he was one of the he lived his life as a very good Muslim, and he's the one who, there was a hadith that once they migrated, and he was in Medina, and I'm forgetting was it when they were building the Masjid Nabi, or when they were building the moat, the Khandak, one of the two, and
when they were
building the masjid,
was
they digging the moat, yeah. So everybody was, yeah. So they were taking one stone, and they gave two stones to Ammar. And Ammar jokingly said that Prophet ﷺ, look, they are killing me by giving me two stones. Everybody's picking one stone, they gave me two stones. And Prophet ﷺ said, no, they are not killing you, but you will be killed by Fi'at Baghiya. And the last thing you will drink will be a bowl of milk, and then you will be killed by an army of transgressors, basically. And he was killed on the side of Ali. So when there was a war between Ali and Muawiyah, so he was killed on the side of Ali Radiallahu anhu.
By Muawiyah's group.
By Muawiyah's group. So that's why they used this hadith at that time.
And straight away, other people with Muawiyah left Muawiyah when
yeah,
he died.
Because they used this hadith that Rasul said that this will be the Fi'at Baghiyah who killed Ammar ibn Yasir. And he lived a long life. He died, I think 37. No, I can't remember. So he died at the time of Ali, basically. The next one is Khabab ibn al-Arat. He was a slave of a Qurayshi lady named Ammar, and he was basically an ironsmith. He was a blacksmith, and he was very good. He used to make swords and things. And Ammar came once, and she started asking him, "Oh, tell me what you've been doing, and I've heard that you have accepted Islam." And she was really nice to him, and he said, "Yes, I've accepted Islam. I'm a follower of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam." So she was a lady. She couldn't do anything. But then, as soon as Khabab ibn al-Arat left, she gathered the Quraysh, all these riffraffs and Abu Jahl and everybody, and he came back and they started beating Khabab ibn al-Arat, and they bloodied him, bruised him really bad. So they beat him, and that was amongst the highest. And Khabab managed to build himself a little bit of a little house, and he was living relatively well. And when he was dying, he started crying, and people said, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "I'm not scared of death or anything, or I'm not in pain. I'm crying because I was with a group of people who have all died before me, and they didn't actually tasted the luxuries of the life, and I'm worried for myself that I've got all this luxury around me, that Allah will take away my reward from me, and they will be given a bigger, highest place in Jannah, because they didn't get any reward, and I'm just tasting all this worldly luxuries." So look at him, and he's the one who's been burnt by iron and everything, and he's worried that because of this little house he's managed to build, that he's going to actually get little less reward. Ammar was once he went to meet Umar, and Umar Radiallahu anhu always used to honor these people a lot, and the converts like the Abu Sufyan and other who were the chieftains, we can see that they didn't used to like that all these slave class people, they are getting more honor than we chieftains and we noble people. To some extent, we can see that glimpses in Seerah every now and then. And Khabbab came, and Prophet Umar Radiallahu anhu stood up, went to greet him outside, bring him and sat him on, make him sit on his own place where he was sitting, and then he started asking him, "Tell me about some of the stories of Ammar, so what she used to do." And he didn't say anything. He just stood up and lifted his shirt, and so to show him all the scars he had on his body. And Umar Radiallahu anhu said, "Yeah, you don't need to say anything. I've never seen anything like this in my life." So that's Khabab ibn al-Arat. He died, I think, 37 Hijrah. So he lived a long life. So he died after at 37 Hijrah.
What happened to Myanmar?
Oh yes, Myanmar. I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. So again, what would you do? That's what will happen to you. So Myanmar, one day she woke up acting like a rabid dog, basically. So she's panting and crawling on the floor. She got sick, and they called the physicians of the Makkah of the time, all the big physicians, and guess what they suggested as the treatment? So they said the treatment for this kind of disease is that she be cauterized. basically cautery means just burning your flesh. So you burn the flesh to cauterize. So that's the treatment they gave for her, and that's how she ended up dying, by getting burnt every time she got that attack, that people will come and they put hot iron on her to cauterize her skin. That was I mean, subhanallah, I mean, that's, Allah actually punished her in this world, similar punishment what she did to Khabbab, and she will have much more bigger punishment in the akhirah. But yes, that's how she died. So these were the people who actually were, and we have already spoken about Abdullah ibn Masud last time, that he went to say to read Quran. He said, "I'm going to go and read Quran," and all the Quraysh, they beat him up, and there are multiple stories when he was beaten up by Quraysh, Abu Jahl, and other people. So this is how some of the stories of the lower class people, which were tortured really badly. Was Prophet ﷺ himself tortured physically? Yes, he was tortured, and he was verbally and emotionally, but was he tortured physically? The answer to that is yes, and inshallah next time we'll discuss that. And he was tortured physically as well, and then the biggest of the thing was when they boycotted him, and the 3 years of the boycott, and inshallah that's something which we will discuss next time, because it's already 9, and we will inshallah stop here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. So